Hey guys, Claire here. In today's video, we're going to talk about all things Harry and Meghan. Now, Suits makes history. It's the first show to take the #1 spot on the top 10 streaming list for 12 consecutive weeks. It has captured an impressive 2.4 billion minutes viewed in this interval. How incredible is that? Now, Meghan was spotted out and about in LA and took a selfie with some ladies who are out enjoying a girls' night. Now, speaking of out and about, we will soon be seeing Harry and Meghan hosting a summit in New York on October 10th, which is World Mental Health Day. Now, the summit will feature parents who have experienced tragic loss connected to their children's social media use. Now, within hours of this announcement, the tickets were sold out. Now, one of the guests that I am most looking forward to hear from is the United States Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek. He will also be a part of this summit. So there are some really big names. The topic of conversation will be very deep and interesting and thought-provoking. So I'm very excited for this summit. Now, these three men pictured above have all used their platforms on various occasions to disparage Harry and Meghan, and now, well, they're going through some things. They've been fired, you have police searches, police investigations, one of them was recently arrested, and quite frankly, it couldn't have happened to a more deserving bunch. Now, another one of the spreaders of disinformation about Harry and Meghan has also left her job on the Mail on Sunday, so good riddance. Now, William and Kate were out and about taking lots of photos and videos with people of color for the Black History celebrations in the UK. And I saw a few articles that were calling out the hypocrisy and irony. So it's interesting to see that some of the media are not afraid to call it out for what it is. Even saw a photo of someone with a sign, which definitely echoes my thoughts on the matter. Another day, another performative PR ploy. I guess that's just how they roll.
Prince Harry and Meghan are holding the first ever in-person event for the Archewell Foundation. On October 10th, World Mental Health Day, they will join Surgeon General Vivek Murthy and moderator Carson Daly for the Archwell Foundation Parent Summit, Mental Wellness in a Digital Age. This event will feature conversations with families who have experienced tragic loss connected to their child's social media use and are passionate about building a safer world. The Archwell Foundation has been working with these families for the past year, building community and working on solutions. The Archwell Foundation is a longtime partner of Project Healthy Minds, of which Carson Daly is a board member, and this will be the second World Health Day festival that the group has sponsored. Building a better online world is a key pillar of Archwell's work, and mental health is intrinsically connected to that. Mental health has been a focus of Harry and Meghan's public work from the beginning. From their Oceania tour in 2018, where they met with One Wave, up until just recently in May of this year, when they met with a youth group in California. And part of the reason this topic is so important to both Harry and Meghan is because, as they have shared, they have their own personal experiences, both with mental health and the impact the digital world can have on it.
28 to probably 32 was a nightmare time in my life. I'm freaking out every single time I jump in the car, and every single time that I see a camera. Well, first,
what did it feel like?
I would just start sweating. I was willing to drink, I was willing to take drugs, I was willing to try and do the things that made me feel less like I was feeling. But I slowly became aware that, okay, I wasn't drinking Monday to Friday, but I would probably drink a week's worth in one day on a Friday or a Saturday night. And I would find myself drinking not because I was enjoying it, but because I was trying to mask something.
Oh, 4 years ago, only after meeting Meg, did you start the process of trying to figure it out? You hadn't tried it before? No.
And I quickly established that if this relationship was going to work, that I was going to have to deal with my past because there was anger there. And it wasn't anger at her, it was just anger. And she recognized it, she saw it.
I also think that it is significant that this event will take them back to New York City. As we all remember, the last time they were in New York, they were chased by paparazzi, which, especially for Harry, but for all of them, had to be traumatizing or re-traumatizing. And then, when they spoke up about what happened to them, they weren't believed. They were ridiculed and shamed, which can be incredibly damaging to a person's mental health. I am happy to see them returning to New York so soon. It sends a message that they won't be shamed into hiding or shamed into silence when they talk about something happening to them that isn't okay. And this is an important message for people who might be afraid to talk about things that have happened to them, for fear that they will be labeled as crazy. Meghan talks about this in an episode of Archetypes, The Decoding of Crazy, which was actually released the day after World Mental Health Day last year. So often when people, and particularly women, show emotions or voice their feelings, it's weaponized against them, and the labels, like crazy, come out. Here's Meghan sharing part of her own experience of recognizing that she needed to ask for help.
At my worst point, being finally connected to someone that, my husband had found a referral for me to call, and I called this woman. She didn't know I was even calling her.
What?
And she was checking out at the grocery store. But I think it's for all of us to be really honest about what it is that you need and to not be afraid to make peace with that, to ask for it. And for you, I think what's the most illuminating is that you're willing to talk about it.
As I was putting this video together, I listened again to that entire Archetypes episode. It's one that I have never re-listened to since the first time. Not that it isn't a great conversation, but it's a heavy topic. Not always light listening material. And Meghan acknowledges that multiple times in the episode. I think that we are all experiencing our own version of a mental health journey. We're all in very different places. So what the Archewell Foundation is doing with this event, it's really important because we need to keep talking about mental health and having difficult conversations. To end her episode of Archetypes, Meghan shared a poem that she said really resonated with her. She says it became kind of a North Star as she was working on Archetypes. And the poem resonates with me as well. And I honestly can't think of a better way to end this video than to listen to Meghan read it.
This is Breathe by Becky Hemsley. She sat at the back, and they said she was shy. She led from the front, and they hated her pride. They asked her advice, and then questioned her guidance. They branded her loud, and were shocked by her silence. When she shared no ambition, they said it was sad. So she told them her dreams, and they said she was mad. They told her they'd listen, then covered their ears, and gave her a hug while they laughed at her fears. And she listened to all of it, thinking she should be the girl they told her to be best as she could. But one day she asked what was best for herself, instead of trying to please everyone else. So she walked to the forest and stood with the trees. She heard the wind whisper and dance with the leaves. She spoke to the willow, the elm, and the pine, and she told them what she'd been told time after time. She told them she felt she was never enough. She was either too little or far, far too much. Too loud or too quiet, too fierce or too weak, too wise or too foolish, too bold or too meek. Then she found a small clearing surrounded by firs, and she stopped, and she heard what the trees said to her. And she sat there for hours, not wanting to leave, for the forest said nothing. It just let her breathe.
There will come a day that I stop talking about Prince Harry and breaking generational cycles of trauma, but it is not this day, apparently. But first, go back and watch the video that this comment is on by this creator because it is brilliant. Basically making the point that Prince Harry's behavior right now is what happens when you do go to therapy and you see the generational cycles play out and you want to stand up to them. And this comment is specifically addressing the allegation that Harry, who is calling out the media, is just using the media himself to create his own narrative and perpetuate the same systems. Are we watching the same interviews? I'm like 9 chapters into the book. Are we reading the same book? Because what Harry is naming is a really weird, toxic relationship of the British family to the press and leaks and competing communications offices. And Harry is very clearly calling bullshit on it and saying, all right, if we're going to use the media, I'm going to do it directly and I'm going to do it to your face. Cheers to him. One more, maybe, hopefully, last video on Prince Harry and family systems. This is going to be a slightly longer video because I want to talk about enmeshment. Enmeshment is a particularly insidious abusive dynamic within families where those individuals within the system really cannot have a distinct sense of their own identity and being outside of the abusive, toxic system. Again, take that up to the most extreme with the royal family. And one of the things you get when listening to Harry talk is that he is probably one of the only people within that family and within that system who wants to have a sense of himself as Harry and has done the work to create a sense of himself as Harry outside of the royals. And that is precisely what is threatening to the system. And there is a particular dynamic of extracting yourself from this type enmeshed system that, again, I think the people who just keep saying, why can't Harry just shut up, don't understand. Because the work of reclaiming and establishing your sense of self outside of a system of enmeshment, and indeed, just like claiming your sense of reality about your life and your experience and your relationships is the work of a lifetime. There's a scene in this Netflix series where Harry and Meghan are like doing a meditative exercise of like, our story is true, our experience is valid, other people don't get to define that. Whew, that hit home for me. And when that sense of yourself and identity has been established publicly by the family system, yeah, you're gonna have to reclaim it publicly. You know, the evidence is increasingly clear that Prince William, at the very least, stood by while the institution of the royal family fed up his brother's wife to the feeding frenzy of the British media, fueled in no small part by centuries of ingrained racism. The very same press that led directly to the unaliving of their mother.
This is my review of Spare by Prince Harry. This book is not as titillating as the media would have you believe. Spare is Harry's attempt to recenter the conversation on the trauma he suffered after the death of his mother. Trauma that shaped his entire life. Like her, he has been unfairly and inaccurately portrayed by the media, by people who have a significant stake in their defamation. But he's a real person whose humanity matters, and this book forces readers to address that. I've heard skeptics ask, if he wants his privacy so much, why did he write so much about his frostbite? But he's railing against having to live his life so much in the spotlight, as he is about having his character assassinated by strangers and family alike. So the more transparent he is about his personal life and his physical well-being, the more likely readers will believe him about the other abuses. And it is abuse, but there's also an important story here about a lost and traumatized young man who found discipline and validation by dedicating himself to a life of public service. A public that's met that commitment with a never-ending demand for his exploitation. What I thought I knew about Harry, and later Meghan, because she doesn't come in until like the final third of the book, is completely false. And they have the receipts to prove it. So if you are at all interested in his truth, Spare will keep you riveted. It is as fast-paced and relentless as a paparazzi chase. But this time, he's in control. Spare is a book about trauma, about grief, about healing, and about the redemptive quality of love. It's paradoxical, but it's not morally ambiguous. I give this 4 stars. I suggest downloading the audio so you can hear it in his own voice, because once you start this, you're not going to want to put it down, and the audio will make that a lot easier.
This part, I am convinced that the people who are harassing Harry and Meghan honestly are not listening to Harry. I wish that there's a clip out there. I don't know where it is. I can't find it, where he was asked what he wanted to do once he became older. I don't know if it was a military interview or what, but his answer was definitively, I do not want to go back to Great Britain. I want to live in Australia or some parts of Africa doing relief work or helping people, but I don't want to go back to Great Britain because Great Britain is hard for me to live there, and I don't want to be a part of that life anymore. He said it out of his own mouth, like 2 or 3 years into military life. I'm not sure where it was, but I cannot find that clip, and I wish I could. They're not listening to him. In his book, prior to meeting Meghan, he was living across the walkway from William and Kate in a cottage that was rotted out almost, eating food from a bowl over the sink. He rarely went out. He went to the stores in the middle of the night and shopped bargain bins for his clothes because he didn't have a clothing budget. If he wasn't the third wheel to William and Kate, he had no purpose. He then met Meghan. He found a purpose, and they are trying to this day to take it away from him. And while the accelerator to them criticizing Meghan, I'm convinced has to do with her color, her skin color, I honestly think that if he would have made this choice with any person, that they would have still acted the same way, because they feel some type of ownership to this boy. And the fact that he's chosen anything other than them is the problem. They ruined his military career. They kept doxing him when he was in the military. Just remember, if you watch Heart of Invictus, he didn't come home because his military service was over. He had to come home because people kept revealing his position in the war, and it started to endanger his fellow troops. So they basically, everything that this boy found that was a sanctuary to him, the British media took it away from him. And ergo, his family took it away from him because they won't fight the media. So yeah, this I absolutely 100% agree. They want Harry the way they want him, and nothing else will do.
Back with another, what is the UK media talking about with regards to Meghan and Harry? More nonsense. And I should definitely start with this one, because all this talk about how GB News talk about women, minorities, they've been talking shit about Meghan Markle for the last forever. And next week it'll be swept under the carpet, no doubt. But I'm glad it's actually being talked about. And hashtag Bungate. It's very interesting how hypocrisy works. But it's interesting that some of the articles are actually calling out Kate as well, whereas it was always calling out Meghan. So that's interesting. Like, hello, we've been calling out double standards with regards to Kate and Meghan for forever. And I swear this headline and bullshit article is featured once a week in several papers. Like, this is the 28th. This was Thursday. Today's Saturday. And again, like, literally copy and paste each other. Tabloid. And I'm sorry, Sharon Osbourne saying anything about Meghan Markle. I'm not going to come on here and degrade women, but Sharon Osbourne, are you okay? And I should quickly throw in thoughts and prayers to Angela Levin, because who's she going to bitch with on a, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night? Because Dan Wootton's not there anymore. Soz about that, Angela. I'll leave you to ponder this. Who cares? Let them live their lives. Who cares?
Filming this outside, so I apologize for any loud noises. However, I wanted to make a video about this article that The Guardian just posted. It is short, simple, and just perfect. And if you're wondering what story they're talking about because you can't keep your Meghan Markle information straight, she's talking about this asinine one. The one where people were saying Meghan Markle was thinking of taking over for Dianne Feinstein's seat in the Senate. Yeah, I refuse to click on any of these links. I'm insignificant, but I don't care. They're not getting my click. I wanted to highlight 2 parts. This one. Meghan occupies a peculiar place in the international media imagination, where they can say almost anything about her. stick in a few sources say and speculations, and their evergreen story is ready to go. And I found this part incredibly interesting and so true. It says if you were to type into ChatGPT everything Piers Morgan object to, you would get Meghan. Some of it would be true, some of it would be embellishment, and some of it would be deliberately false, and some of it would be hallucination. But it would be bundled together in such a way that no sane person could distinguish. And the only choices would be to hate her with a passion or back away from the entire spectacle. They have spent years destabilizing her image, denouncing her credibility, so that they can say anything they want about her and they can get away with it. And that they've created such a circus around her that it's just easier to pretend this problem doesn't exist. Because I know a lot of people say she's unpopular in the United Kingdom. She might be incredibly disliked. However, I don't think she is as hated as the media tries to let on. Because as this article hints, the circus around Meghan is just so intense that it is just easier to not get involved.
Like I've said before on this channel, everything about the monarchy is a grift. And what better way to encapsulate that grift by looking at royal memorabilia? Here are just a few choice pictures that I've taken on my visit to the UK. Most of these were found in charity shops, but some of them were not. I saw this mug in a charity shop from the Jubilee. I think, what is it, 1977? Is that golden? Something like that. Pretty classy, honestly. Doesn't look too tacky, but still, like, I'm not really sure why you would buy this. I also found not one, but two of this mug in particular in two different charity shops, which was made to commemorate the marriage between Charles and Diana. Kind of goes to show you that this type of memorabilia just isn't worth anything, right? Like, most people like that want to collect things that will appreciate in value, but buying tat like this is just like, it's not worth it. It's not going to increase in value. Nobody wants it. And if you're really unlucky, it will become horribly dated. There's another one I found for Charles and Diana's wedding. Different style, I guess, but similar kind of vibe. This side of the mug looks quite, classy, but I mean, it's still like, why do you want these people on a mug? Like, for £3.50 now, like, this was probably worth like 10 quid when they bought it. We have this coin collection here. British Mint loves to do this kind of thing where they print coins specifically for different events for the monarchy. This one is just a coin collection. It's kind of cool, but also a little bit, what? And here we have two more in another charity shop, one for the 80th birthday of the Queen and one for the Golden Jubilee. This style of royal memorabilia, like, I just don't get it. Like, to me, it looks very tacky. It looks like somebody wants something that looks kind of expensive, but isn't. I think just the big question in my mind is, why does the royal family get involved in marketing this kind of crap? Like, do they really need your money? You know? And last but certainly not least was this that I found in the reduced section. A bunch of different bears that just say Her Majesty the Queen on it and has her birth and death dates on it. Just like, who would you give this to and why would you give it to them? I don't understand. And then this biscuit tin of King Charles. Like, who's eating biscuits and is like, you know what I really need? To see King Charles's face as I eat some biscuits with my tea. But in thinking more about this question, I stumbled across this pretty interesting article by Richard Morgan from Morning Brew titled The Uncertain Future of Royal Merchandise. The Queen has fueled the mini economy for decades. Can it survive Charles? And the author of the piece basically notes that when you go to buy any merchandise for King Charles, it just doesn't exist because it doesn't sell. Because King Charles does not sell the monarchy very well as a whole, and he certainly can't support his own, brand image. He writes, put plainly, the Queen was the British monarchy, and without her, international interest in the Windsors seems uncertain, as does the entire business of selling royal merchandise. According to the article, the British public spent £282 million on memorabilia for the Platinum Jubilee, and nearly £134 million on merchandise for William and Kate's wedding. And the big question in the room for me is why? Why do people want to buy this merchandise? And keep in mind, some of this is through unofficial sellers and stuff like that, but the monarchy itself has its own merchandise. This is the monarchy's official merchandising website. They sell this directly to consumers, and you're thinking like, why? Why do they need people's money like this? It just seems so grifty. Like, they're not happy with just getting taxpayer money. They want to convince people to buy things from them, and it's not cheap. You'd think for what taxpayers are actually paying for this family, everybody in the country should be able to get a voucher for like one mug from the website. But back to King Charles. Basically, the article posits that because Charles's image has yet again like had to go through this new rehabilitation, what with like the crown bringing up all the Charles and Diana stuff again, and plus him just being like an unlikable character, he doesn't have, quote, the it factor to sell merchandise, to the point where most shops just don't carry anything with his name on it. Even this crazy royal fanatic that they talk to in the article basically says that she would not buy anything with Charles's face on it, and she's like, don't even get me started on Camilla. When Morning Brew inquired about Camilla merchandise at gift shops, the responses ranged from laughter to, in one instance, being asked to leave the shop. But it goes on to talk about a really interesting part about royal memorabilia, which is that the type of memorabilia that's actually worth something is things that like have misprints on it, or things that are really rare, like these coronation cups for Edward VIII's coronation, which never actually happened because he abdicated. And this is the big part of the grift, right? When you're selling this type of merchandise, you're kind of hoping that people will like buy into this idea that it's like valuable in some way, that it might increase in value, or that it should like maintain its value in some way. But in most cases, it's not. It's not going to increase or even maintain its value at all, because it's just a bunch of crap that's been mass marketed to a huge group of people. It's just the same gimmick that's been used to market like collectible dolls or collectible coins and all of this stuff. This hope that it's going to increase in value, that it's going to be worth so much because it's labeled collector worthy. But that's not how collections work. Collections that like increase in value are increasing in value because they are rare, not because they are marketed as collectible. The article goes on to note, quote, they have emotional value. And that's the whole thing, right? This memorabilia is playing on people's emotions and trying to get them emotionally invested in the monarchy, in these ideas, and form an emotional attachment that's going to get people to spend their hard-earned pounds on basic crap that they don't actually need. Things that'll just end up in a charity shop 20 years later, or in the reduced section of your local Boots.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, hit that notification bell.